Anton LaVey expressed his contempt for people who demonstrated the huddling instinct, explaining that it is certain indication that they weren't Satanists at all, just sheep who wanted to pretend to be goats. He was right. And we are constantly treated to displays of satanic wannabes parading around with websites and organizations, using our symbols and literature as a means for attempting to gain attention for themselves, while ostensibly claiming to want to be helping Satanism as a movement. Well, we say thanks, but no thanks. We don't need amateur help, particularly when this help demonstrates that the amateurs don't grasp these very basic principles. Let's look at a typical example. Here's Joe. It could just as easily be Jane. Shits. A general loser whose age is between 15 and 29. He heard about Satanism from his favorite Let's Freak Out the Parents rock star, and since he's too lazy to go to the library to do research and too cheap to buy a book, he turns to the internet. He surfs the web and is confronted by hundreds of sites claiming to be giving valid information about Satanism. Since his image of Satanism includes, like his musical hero stage persona, public acclaim, wealth, sex, and notoriety, he is ill-equipped to deal with all this material, lacking any measure to discriminate the valid from the invalid. If he purchased and read the Satanic Bible, or carefully read the essays and interviews on the Church of Satan's official site, he'd begin to see what Satanism is really about, but that would be too much like work. Some of what he sees in this morass imagery that might prove shocking to others, he likes. He thinks he's found the passport to a position in the limelight. He compares his own humdrum existence with his perception of Satanism and suddenly wants to be a part of it. So, first off, he changes his name to some less than euphonious moniker like Damien Anton Manson Dragon Asathoth the 23rd. A brief aside. What is it with these people who feel the need to adopt these spooky names? If they really hate the names with which they have been gifted by their parents, why not change it to something more effective, as many Hollywood actors and other showbiz types have done? Something simple and catchy, easy to remember, but impressive. Names like John Wayne, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield. Or they might even look to character names from Pulp Fiction or classic literature to find an appellation more suitable to their personalities. However, names that sound like they should be listed on a membership card for a Count Chocula fan club should be avoided like the plague, if they are bound in the ranks of satanic posers. Stop looking through these lists of demon names, especially if they are from role-playing or video games. It's a challenge. Don't change your name at all. If you've looked at history, most of the great names are simply known because the people who have them achieved memorable things. People remember names like Mozart, Einstein, Edison, Galileo, not because these names had any prior resonance, but because of what these individuals created. So, do you have what it takes to stick with your own name and through your own creativity make it a name that future generations will use as a synonym with fame or notoriety? Back to our newbie. He might then start dressing in bizarre outfits inspired by his favorite musician's stage show, forgetting the fact that he isn't a rock star and he isn't on stage. He might wear black lipstick or nail polish, or even go so far as to get a piercing or a tattoo. What a maverick. He's now received the negative attention of family and friends. But since he wants to be a rebel, he feels this is a good beginning. Now to expand his horizons, as there's a whole world out there waiting to be annoyed. So he gets on his parents' computer and signs up for a free website. An easy process that has predictably led to the ever-expanding internet Drek festival. Time to grab some content. He again looks up Satanism online, so as to find his own kind, now that he thinks he's a Satanist. What does he find? A plethora of others, like him. Must mean there's a community. And he's dying to be big cheese in it. He's his own god, isn't he? He's just got to show everyone else out there that he's better than they are. So he immediately begins to lift graphics from sites he encounters, as well as any essays he thinks sound scary enough to enhance his reputation. Only writings by the most famous names in Satanism will do. The very idea of copyrighted material and creators' rights never enters the mind, particularly as he feels, by putting these graphics and text on his site, that he is helping to support Satanism. Any who tell him otherwise must just be old fuddy-duddies who just want to rain on his parade. So screw them. He is now determined to be the great black Pope of Satanism. He wants to evangelize people concerning his newfound identity. Just because he's unaware of the vast amount of representation that's been done over the last 40 years by the Church of Satan spokespersons must mean it just wasn't very good. It couldn't possibly mean he didn't know how to do research. He also hasn't learned that proselytizing is not a part of Satanism. Eventually, he runs across the official website of the Church of Satan. He finds it to be a goldmine of material to pilfer. That he is stealing and thus violating the concept of responsibility to the responsible would never come to focus in what passes for his thinking. Next, he decides that he'll start a satanic organization. Since he's a god, how can he not be a leader? He'd never think of following someone with more intelligence and experience. That would make him seem weak to admit that he doesn't instantly know everything. Naturally, he's got to be the high priest. Move over, Anton LaVey. Anyone who emails him and compliments his site becomes a member, and if they kiss ass particularly well, they receive an instant priesthood. He finally decides that he's going to approach the Church of Satan and propose an alliance, as he thinks he'd really become the leading force for keeping Satanism alive in the world. The poor old Church of Satan just better recognize this, lest it be left in his dust. So he sends an email full of bluster and bravado claiming he's got a huge international organization and a website. Satan save us. He signs this portentous missive with his brand new name, appended to which are numerous titles such as High Priest of Universal Elite Legions. One of our representatives reads this, and a dozen like it, which came in that week, and then dutifully checks out the site, discovering once it's an interminable download is over and it is chock full of crappy animations and sound files, that it is also full of stolen Church of Satan material, both copyrighted texts and graphics. Our representative then sends a formal email pointing out these blatant copyright violations and asks High Priest Azathoth to remove them, or else we'll have to approach a service provider. This naturally enrages the impotentate. How dare the Church of Satan stop him from becoming the world's greatest satanic leader? So he writes back his response full of profanity and indignation. After all, his satanic genius has not been recognized. Our Church of Satan representative must then go through the tedious task of contacting HPA's internet service provider, quoting the guidelines for service of which HPA is in violation, and then monitoring the situation until that page has either removed all copyrighted materials or simply cancelled by the provider. The usual outcome. Now disgruntled, Damien, thwarted in his bid to rule the world of Satanism, must start a campaign to reassert himself in the Satanic Community, with the Church of Satan as his target. He thinks, what gall they have to protect their material when I know how to use it better. He'll email his cronies, and they will try to invade message boards frequented by real Satanists, doing their best to prevent pleasurable discussions from taking place. That the moderators for these boards kick and ban them only serves as a stimulant. They could make their own message boards in which they would be free to gather and discuss how rotten the Church of Satan is. But that usually does not suffice. They desperately want recognition by real Satanists, and they'll get it by being annoying rather than trying to earn respect for any tangible achievements or simply engaging in intelligent discussion. Of course, our would-be high priest may eventually find something else to hold his interest. He might actually go out on a date or find that he does have some kind of skill that he needs to practice, aside from being a royal asshole. The one skill which he's perfected by now. But he may prolong his tenure in the Satanic Community. He stumbles into another kind of online group, a collection of small-minded losers who have washed up on the shoals of the internet after their website vessels have been sunk by the torpedoes of the mean old Church of Satan. Here is the haven wherein he'll find fellow self-proclaimed high priests. They are usually collected under the direction of a new Magus, who is even more pretentious and pompous than they are. Hence he's top of that shit heap. Here they will huddle together, fueled by their hatred for the fact that they couldn't conquer the satanic universe as embodied in the Church of Satan, and united in their envy of those who have earned positions therein. Now they have a peanut gallery to cheer them on, as they spew their illiterate vitriol of particularly dilute vintage against the real Satanists whom they might encounter. They will clutter Usenet as well as message boards with their pointless moronic postings. Of course, when the time comes to sort out the pecking order amongst these high priests, then the fur will fly and schisms will abound as they scratch out each other's eyes, fighting over ever sillier titles. Eventually they will just leave Satanism behind altogether. If only this would happen with greater speed. If only this would happen with greater speed. Does any of this sound familiar? Does this example hold up a mirror to you? If so, please take a long look and think about what you are projecting to those real Satanists whom you might encounter. You may well ask, so what is it that the eager individual new to Satanism might do to help the Satanic movement, not the Satanic community? The answer is simple. Satanism is about centering the world on yourself, which means knowing yourself as fully as possible. Knowing yourself as fully as possible. What are your consuming interests, aside from Satanism? And what are your talents? Once you have an answer to this question, then you should set out to achieve something in these areas. Sounds easy, doesn't it? But it is a tall order for many, who must buy a ready-made identity and then bludgeon other people with it in order to be noticed. Lately, too many of them have mistaken the idea that they are Satanists, and they have access to computers. The person who has a talent for baking and figures out how to make some damn fine chocolate chip cookies and then shares the secret with friends, thereby enriching their world with delicious cookies, or makes an empire out of selling these to other people, is someone who is using a satanic principle to further their lives. A satanic principle to further their lives. If this person becomes a world-famous cookie magnate, or just the neighborhood's most revered baker, and then lets people know that his philosophy is Satanism, then that is a deed which forwards the movement. That is a deed which forwards the movement. Our baker who have demonstrated that a Satanist is a person with the capability to do something exemplary, dressing up weirdly, making shabby websites, and screaming to the world that you are a Satanist only impresses utter fools, and does nothing to help our movement. Want recognition from other Satanists? Deliver the goods. Don't make hollow promises, pretentious claims, and overblown pontifications. Just do something, and do it well. Are you a musician, artist, mathematician, publisher, athlete, scientist, engineer, designer, scholar, architect, writer, or craftsperson? Show us that you understand the magic of mastery. I guarantee that the real Satanists will take notice.